Do you love me or not? If you love me, you'll buy me that Birkin. Chloe's boyfriend just got her one last month. Tiffany's voice, sharp as an ice pick through the phone, stabbed directly into my eardrum. I closed my eyes and leaned back against the cold vinyl of my office chair, a dull throb pulsing at my temples. On my monitor, dense blocks of code crawled like a swarm of black ants, mocking the soon-to-be zero balance in my checking account. Fifth, didn't we just get that Louis Vuitton Neverfull last month? That was a whole paycheck. My quarterly bonus hasn't even hit yet. Maybe we could. Maybe what? Maybe we could break up. She cut me off, her words merciless. Ethan, I'm telling you, out of all my friends, I'm the one living the most pathetic life. Their afternoon tea is at the plaza. Their weekends are spontaneous trips to Paris. And me, I'm stuck squeezing onto the subway with you, eating at places where the entrees are under $30. I'm 26, Ethan. How many years of my youth am I supposed to waste on you? If you, a goddamn coder, can't give me the life I want, then don't get in my way. My throat was sandpaper. I couldn't form a single word for her. I drained the down payment my parents had scraped together for a small house back in our hometown in Indiana, the nest egg for the kid who'd made it out. She loved designer brands, so I ate ramen and funneled every spare dollar into her wardrobe. I thought that was love, what a man was supposed to do. But her appetite was a black hole, and I was at the event horizon, completely tapped out. I'll come pick you up after work. We can talk in person. Okay. I swallowed my pride, my voice nearly a plea. In a fight, the guy should be the first to cave. No shame in that. Whatever. She hung up, the click echoing in the sudden silence. I sighed, ducked out of the office an hour early, and endured a 90-minute subway ride from Queens to her office building in Midtown. It was a glass and steel titan, one of those A-list towers where the setting sun glared off the facade so brightly it made you squint, a perfect metaphor for the chasm between Tiffany and me. In my hand, I clutched a small box containing a tiramisu from her favorite bakery. I figured the sight of me and the cake might cool her down. At 6:30, the lobby doors opened, releasing a tide of office workers. I craned my neck, scanning the crowd for her familiar silhouette. And then I saw her. She was wearing a black mini dress I'd never seen before, so tight it looked painted on, her long legs impossibly pale in the twilight. She wasn't wearing any of the shoes I'd bought her. The ones on her feet had blood-red soles, a brand I'd only ever seen in magazines with a price tag that could cover my parents' living expenses for a decade. She wasn't alone. Her hand was laced through the arm of another man. He was taller than me, better looking, and the Richard Mille on his wrist was worth more than I was. A roar filled my ears as the blood rushed to my head. I watched Tiffany stand on her toes and plant a kiss on the man's cheek, her laugh a cascade of shimmering notes. It was a genuine, radiant smile, the kind I had never, not once, seen her direct at me. They walked, oblivious to the world, toward a Maserati parked at the curb. In that instant, every rational thought evaporated. I was a charging bull seeing red. Tiffany's smile froze when she saw me. A flicker of panic crossed her face, quickly replaced by pure annoyance. The rich guy looked me up and down with an amused curiosity, the way you'd look at a monkey in a zoo. "What are you doing here?" Tiffany's voice was arctic. "Who is he?" I pointed at the man, my voice trembling with rage. The box of tiramisu slipped from my grasp and splattered on the pavement, a creamy, pathetic mess just like my heart. "My boyfriend, what's it to you?" Tiffany tightened her grip on the man's arm, jutting her chest out. "Let me formally introduce you. This is Mr. Sterling. Sonny, this is my ex-boyfriend." "Oh," the man, Sterling, let out a soft chuckle. He pulled a cigar from his pocket, and a bodyguard materialized to light it for him. He took a drag and blew a thick plume of smoke right in my face, making me choke and cough. "Kid, Tiffany's told me about you. Some kind of corporate drone, right? A coder." He tapped my chest with his cigar-wielding fingers. "You think the pennies you make in a month are enough for our tiff? You know how much this dress cost? You're a quarterly bonus. The shoes on her feet, half your annual salary. Let me give you some advice. Know your place. A frog in a well shouldn't be dreaming about a swan in the sky. Tiffany, say something to me." I stared at her, desperate. All these years we've been together. What was that? All the money I spent on you. What was that for? Finally, she spoke, and her words were sharper than Sterling's insults, carving me up piece by piece. Ethan, don't be so childish, okay? Can you eat love? And that little bit of money you spent, you have the nerve to bring that up. That's what a boyfriend is supposed to do. Now I found something better. Shouldn't you be happy for me? Why do you have to show up here and make a scene like some pathetic ex? It's embarrassing. She glanced at the puddle of cake on the ground and curled her lip in disgust. Still buying this cheap garbage. So low rent. Let's go, babe. Don't waste your time on this loser. Sterling wrapped an arm around Tiffany's waist and gave her a proprietary squeeze. With a soft murmur, Tiffany folded into him like a contented cat and slid into the passenger seat of the Maserati. The engine roared to life, a metallic beast, and peeled away from the curb, leaving me in a cloud of exhaust fumes and humiliation. I stood there, frozen, a statue hollowed of its soul. The stares and whispers of passers-by were 1,000 tiny needles piercing my skin. I don't know how I walked away from there. I just remember the tears streaming down my face, the salty tracks mixing with the city grime, blurring the entire world into a meaningless smudge. I cried, a man pushing 30, sobbing like an idiot on a Manhattan street corner. For the next few days, I was a zombie. I called in sick and sealed myself in my tiny apartment, curtains drawn against the world. The room filled with empty DoorDash containers and beer cans, the air growing thick and sour. I kept replaying Tiffany's words, Sterling's sneer, the acid of failure eating away at my insides. I hated them, but more than that, I hated myself for being so powerless. On the fourth day, annoying hunger finally forced me out of bed. I grabbed my phone, reflexively opening the DoorDash app to order the cheapest thing I could find. And that's when I saw it. In the Recommended For You section, the app's algorithm had served up a single perfect suggestion: Dragon Ball. It was the cheap hole-in-the-wall noodle place Tiffany and I used to go to when we first got together. Back when we were broke, a $10 order of their beef lo mein was a feast. She'd devour every last noodle, scrape the container clean with her chopsticks, and sigh with satisfaction. And now she thought tiramisu was garbage. I stared at the recommendation, and a thought struck me like a bolt of lightning. How'd the app know? How did it know Dragon Ball was my comfort food? Of course, big data. It had logged every order I'd ever placed, analyzed my preferences, and probably even inferred from my recent inactivity that I was in a state of distress, pushing the one cheap, satisfying meal that would bring me a flicker of comfort. It knew me better than Tiffany ever had. A cold, unfeeling program through data collection and analysis could provide more accurate care than the woman I had shared my bed with for years. What if I applied that same model to something else, like coffee? Starbucks, Dunkin', all the traditional chains. Do they really know their customers? Do they know which office in a skyscraper hits a slump and needs a blast of espresso? Do they know which sorority at NYU has a collective craving for extra sweet iced lattes at 3 p.m. on a Thursday? Do they know the guy who just got dumped needs a BOGO coupon so he can grab a friend and talk it out? They don't, but data could. A crazy idea began to sprout in my mind, spreading like a virus. I thought about the high-tech, rapid expansion model of some startups using a tech playbook to disrupt a traditional industry, but their model was still fundamentally about people finding coffee. I was going to build a system where coffee finds people. I'd create a brand. I call it Aura Coffee. I would build the most powerful user database on the planet. I would partner with other apps, ride-sharing, social media, food delivery, hell, even weather apps, to acquire behavioral, locational, and transactional data, even emotional data. My system would know you were thirsty before you did, and it would push a coupon for your favorite drink directly to your phone. My system would know when you walked within 100 yards of one of my stores, and it would have your customized order already queued up, waiting for you to tap confirm for a 3-minute pickup. Precision targeting, precision timing, precision pricing. A $7 single origin pour-over for the hedge fund analyst in the financial district. A $1.99 Americano for the college kid cramming for finals near Columbia. Every customer's version of Aura Coffee would be tailored specifically to them. I would weave a web of data, a net so vast and intricate it would capture every potential coffee drinker. I would build an empire, and then I would make damn sure that Sterling, that Tiffany, that every single person who ever looked down on me would see what a goddamn coder could really build. The thought sent a jolt of electricity through me. I leaped out of bed and staggered to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. In the mirror, a haggard man with bloodshot eyes and a 3-day beard stared back. But for the first time in days, there was a fire in those eyes. I threw out all the beer cans and takeout boxes, opened my laptop, and began to write the most important code of my life, the business plan for Aura Coffee. I poured my entire life savings, a few thousand, into it. I rented a tiny closet-sized storefront near NYU. There was no money for fancy decor, just a single espresso machine and a counter. My only partner was the Aura Brain, a cloud-based data analytics system I built from scratch. My life became a blur of relentless work. By day, I was the barista and the delivery guy. By night, I was the coder, refining my algorithms until dawn. I leveraged every connection I had, striking data-sharing deals with office building management apps, campus forums, and even local news outlets. The Aura Brain began to hum. It analyzed data from a nearby tech incubator and learned that demand for caffeine spiked after 9 p.m. So at 9 p.m. every night, every employee in that building with a partner app on their phone received a push notification, burning the midnight oil. Your late-night Americano is on us. Free at our coffee tonight. The first night, 30 people came. The second night, 100. They told their co-workers. Soon, Aura Coffee became the unofficial fuel station for every late-night coding session in the building. The Aura Brain discovered that on sunny Friday afternoons, when classes were over, female students at a nearby liberal arts college showed the highest propensity to buy flavored lattes. So every qualifying Friday, they'd get a coupon, Suns Out, Lattes Out, BOGO on all Sakura Rose lattes with a student ID. They came in pairs and groups, snapping pictures for their Instagrams, turning my tiny shop into a viral hot spot. My algorithm grew smarter. It could infer a potential breakup from a user's Spotify playlist, a sudden spike in sad indie folk, combined with their seamless history of late-night orders of ice cream, and then send a targeted coupon, life's a little bitter. Let's make it sweet. 50% off a new caramel cloud macchiato. This uncanny sense of being understood created a terrifyingly high level of customer loyalty. To them, Aura Coffee wasn't just a shop, it was a friend who just got them. My business exploded. 3 months in, I secured my first round of angel funding, $500,000. I used the money to open my second location in the lobby of the very same midtown skyscraper where Tiffany worked. I didn't do anything overt, but the Aura Brain had already ingested the data profiles of Tiffany and all her colleagues. Her tags were high spend, brand conscious, and preferred extremely sweet items. So every day, she started getting notifications from our coffee, not for cheap Americanos, but for things like the CEO's wife special, Valona chocolate frappe paired with a Hermes orange-inspired macaron. I don't know if she ever bought one. I didn't care. The next 2 years were a whirlwind of insane growth. Armed with my coffee finds, people model, and off-the-charts user data, I became the darling of venture capitalists. Series A, 50 million. Series B, 500 million. Series C plus 2 billion. My store spread from New York to Chicago, from Chicago to the entire country. 2 years, 3,000 locations. My expansion rate terrified the legacy brands. Starbucks stock price dropped 30% in a single year, with market analysts explicitly citing the rise of Aura Coffee. My predictive algorithm became a case study at Harvard Business School. They called me the coffee czar of the data age. My personal wealth grew at a speed I couldn't have comprehended. I was no longer Ethan Lee, the coder from Indiana taking the subway. I was Ethan Lee, founder and CEO of Aura Coffee. I bought a bigger apartment, a penthouse. I bought the same model of Maserati Sterling used to drive. I rarely took it out. I preferred the quiet comfort of the chauffeur-driven Escalade that took me to and from the office. I thought my history with Tiffany was a closed chapter until one day I was in my office, a glass-walled perch on the top floor of a skyscraper overlooking Central Park, listening to a presentation on global market expansion. My assistant knocked and entered with a strange look on her face. "Mr. Lee, there are 2 visitors at reception. They don't have an appointment, but they're insisting on seeing you. One, his name is Tiffany Cow, and the other says he's her business partner." I paused for a beat, then smiled. Sooner or later, This was bound to happen. Send them up. 15 minutes later, my office door opened. A middle-aged man walked in first, his belly straining against a tight-fitting polo shirt. A thick gold chain rested on his chest, and his hair was slicked back with too much product. He beamed, extending a sweaty hand. "Mr. Lee, an honor. A true honor. I'm Tiffany's boyfriend and business partner, Rick." I ignored his hand, my gaze drifting past him to Tiffany. She had changed. The heavy makeup couldn't hide the fine lines around her eyes or the exhaustion etched into her face. The Chanel-style tweed jacket she wore looked like a cheap knockoff, with a few threads already unraveling at the cuff. She looked at me, her eyes a chaotic mix of shock, envy, regret, and a tiny, desperate flicker of hope. "Can I help you?" I leaned back in my executive chair, my tone neutral. Rick rubbed his hands together, his expression fawning. "Mr. Lee, Ethan, here's the deal. Our Tiffany, she's an entrepreneur now in a live stream shopping game. We see what you're doing with Aura Coffee. Just killing it. And we were thinking maybe we could, get a little piece of the action." He pulled a bank card from a worn Hermes wallet, which I also suspected was fake, and placed it gingerly on my vast oak desk. "Look, we know you're a big shot. You don't need our chump change, but this is a gesture of our faith. $500,000. We don't want much, just 1% of the company. Think about it. Tiff can promote your coffee on her streams. It's synergy." I looked at the card, then at him, and almost laughed out loud. 1%. Did he have any idea that Aura Coffee had just closed its Series D funding at a valuation of over $50 billion? His $500,000 couldn't even buy the rug in my office. Before I could speak, Rick, misinterpreting my silence as displeasure with the offer, turned and slapped Tiffany across the face. The crack of the impact was shockingly loud in the quiet office. "You useless bitch," he snarled, his friendly demeanor vanishing. "What are you standing there for? Say something, Tim. I put up my life savings for your stupid little projects, and if you can't close this deal, you'll see what happens when we get home." Tiffany clutched her cheek, tears welling in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She looked at me, her expression one of utter humiliation and pleading. In that moment, I felt no thrill of revenge, only a profound hollow sadness. This was the better life she'd chosen, trading a Maserati-driving sociopath for a woman-beating greasy wannabe. Her standards, it seemed, were in free fall. I picked up my desk phone and buzzed security. "I need 2 agents in my office. Please escort Mr. Gable and Miss Chow out. I believe they're lost." Rick's face turned the color of raw liver. "Hey, Mr. Lee, wait. We can negotiate. Let's talk numbers." I ignored him. Tiffany watched, and something seemed to snap inside her. She wrenched her arm away from Rick and rushed to my desk, her face instantly transforming into a mask of tearful remorse. "Ethan," she cried, using my name for the first time. "I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I was so stupid and materialistic back then. Look at the life I'm living now. He hits me. He treats me like dirt. Ethan, the person I've always loved is you. Can't we start over, please? I'll do anything." Rick just stood there dumbfounded. "You rotten, are you playing me?" Tiffany didn't even look at him. Her eyes were locked on me, desperately searching my face for any sign of weakness. I watched her performance impassive. I looked at the face that I once obsessed over, that I once would have died for, and felt nothing but a distant clinical revulsion. "Ms. Chow," I said slowly, my voice stripped of all warmth, "I think you're mistaken. First, we're not familiar. Please call me Mr. Lee. Second, this is a corporate office, not a recycling center. I see you for exactly what you are. You don't love me. You love my money. You love the idea of being Mrs. CEO of Aura Coffee. Unfortunately for you, that particular product is expired, fully depreciated, and frankly, I find it quite disgusting." My words were ice picks, shattering her last fragile hope. Her expression shifted from pleading to shock, then curdled into pure venom. "Ethan Lee, don't you be so arrogant. You think you're so high and mighty with your dirty money? Have you forgotten how you used to crawl and beg me for everything? You're just a hick from Indiana. You'll always be a hick." She lunged, devolving into a shrieking mess, trying to claw out my face. 2 large security guards arrived just in time, catching her by the arms. "See them out," I said, waving a dismissive hand and swiveling my chair to face the window. Turning my back on them, I could hear Tiffany's hysterical curses and Rick's pathetic apologies fading as the office door closed, sealing them out of my world. Silence returned. I swiveled back around and looked out at the city skyline. Once I had stood at the bottom of this concrete jungle and felt like a speck of dust. Now it was all beneath my feet. I had finally completely severed the past. The weak, lovesick, desperate Ethan Lee was dead. In his place stood the CEO of Aura Coffee. I felt a wave of lightness wash over me as if a heavy chain had just been lifted from my shoulders. And then a searing pain ripped through my upper abdomen, a white-hot drill boring into my guts. A cold sweat soaked my shirt. The world went black at the edges, and I slid from my chair onto the floor. "Mr. Lee." My assistant rushed in, her voice panicked. "What's wrong? Someone call an ambulance." I was rushed to the nearest private hospital and admitted to a VIP suite. It was there I met my attending physician. She was young, maybe 30, in a crisp white coat. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and her face, free of heavy makeup, had a clean, intelligent beauty that was impossible to look away from. She didn't have Tiffany's flashy glamour. Hers was a quiet, self-possessed grace like a cool, clear spring. "Mr. Lee, hello. I'm Dr. Sarah Vance, Associate Head of Gastroenterology." Her voice was gentle, imbued with a calming authority. I was surprised, so young to be an associate head. She held up my test results, explaining them with patient clarity based on endoscopy and my symptoms. The preliminary diagnosis is an acute duodenal ulcer with associated gastritis. It's strongly linked to long-term stress and an irregular diet. She administered some medication, and the agonizing pain quickly began to subside. "You're the CEO of Aura Coffee, right?" she asked with a small smile as she adjusted my 4-drip. "I'm a big fan of your oat milk lattes." "Is that so?" "In that case, Dr. Vance, your coffee is on the house for life," I joked, feeling more human again. She laughed, her eyes crinkling in a lovely crescent. "I can't accept that, but as your doctor, I'd advise you to drink less coffee and more warm water." Anyway, over the next few days, she'd stop by on her rounds. We talked a lot. I discovered we had a startling amount in common. I told her about the Aura Brain, about Bayesian inference and collaborative filtering. I expected her eyes to glaze over, but she listened, fascinated. "That's incredible," she said. "It's a lot like making a diagnosis. We gather all of a patient's information, symptoms, vitals, lab results. That's your data. Then we run it through a complex algorithm in our brains, a model built on all our medical knowledge and clinical experience to arrive at the most probable diagnosis. That's your precision targeting." I was floored. I'd never realized that cold hard code and the life-saving art of medicine could share the same fundamental logic. She told me about her work, showing me a video of an endoscopic surgery. I watched her slender, steady hands maneuver instruments inside the human body to precisely excise a precancerous polyp just a few millimeters in size. She was calm, focused, brilliant. I realized I was completely captivated by her. Not by her beauty, but by her intellect, her competence, her soul. With her, I didn't have to be the formidable CEO. I could just be Ethan. The day I was discharged, I asked for her number. I started to pursue her. I skipped the clichés, no flowers, no handbags. I knew that wasn't her style. I learned she loved theater, so I got front row seats to the hottest new play on Broadway. I learned she loved art history, so I arranged a private after-hours tour of the Met with one of the curators. I learned she loved classical music, so I booked an entire recital hall and hired a string quartet to play her favorite Dvorak pieces just for the two of us. We had endless things to talk about, from the latest breakthroughs in AI to new papers in The Lancet. From Kant's critique of pure reason to the proof of Fermat's last theorem, being with her filled a part of me I never knew was empty. It was a feeling of profound peace and contentment. 6 months later, under a canopy of stars in a private planetarium I had built for her, I asked her to marry me. She said yes through happy tears. Our wedding was the event of the season. Everyone who was anyone in New York was there. My parents sat at the head table, their faces streaked with tears of joy. They never imagined their quiet, nerdy son from Indiana could achieve all this and marry such a wonderful woman. I stood on the stage holding Sarah's hand. In the spotlight, she was an angel in white. When the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," I slipped the custom-designed diamond ring onto her finger. Just as the ring settled into place, I felt a strange gaze from the crowd, sharp and cold as a needle. It was filled with a toxic brew of jealousy, regret, resentment, and something else, despair. My eyes reflexively followed the feeling. All I saw was the back of a vaguely familiar, unnervingly thin figure in an ill-fitting suit stumbling his way out of the ballroom. I dismissed it as a trick of the light. The crowd began to cheer. "Kiss her, kiss her." I turned my attention back to the love of my life. I dipped my head, and to the sound of thunderous applause, I kissed my bride. In that moment, I was the happiest man in the world. After the wedding, Sarah and I went on our honeymoon. We skipped the tropical resorts and went to a quiet town in Norway to watch the northern lights, ski, and drink mulled wine by a fireplace. I had never felt so at peace. I believed that everything I had gone through, Tiffany's betrayal, the brutal grind of building my company, had all just been a path leading me to Sarah. Every hardship was just a stepping stone to this happiness. When we returned, life settled into a beautiful rhythm. I ran my coffee empire. She saved lives on our operating table. We were two planets in a stable orbit, independent but inextricably drawn to each other. One night, we were curled up on the couch watching an old movie where the hero misses his chance with his true love and ends up alone. "It's strange," Sarah mused. "Sometimes in life, a single choice is more important than all the effort in the world. One wrong turn and everything can be lost." I stroked her hair. "Good thing we both made the right choices." She was quiet for a moment, then she asked, "Ethan, aren't you curious about my past relationships?" I hesitated. We had an unspoken agreement not to dig into each other's pasts. We both believed the present and the future were all that mattered. "If you want to tell me, I want to listen," I said softly. She rested her head on my shoulder, her voice distant. "I was with someone once, my college boyfriend. He was brilliant, incredibly ambitious. We were together for 7 years through school and into our careers. I thought we'd get married." A knot tightened in my stomach, but I stayed silent. "Then he started a company. To support him, I gave him all my savings, even the money my parents had set aside for my first apartment, but his business never took off. We were always broke, and we started fighting all the time. It felt like I was listening to a ghost story when I already knew." And then Sarah's voice grew brittle. "He met a rich girl. Her father was a famous venture capitalist. He told me he needed her help, needed her father's money to make his dream a reality. He asked me to wait for him. He promised he'd come back for me as soon as he was successful." "And you waited?" I asked. "I waited like an idiot for a whole year until one day I saw their engagement announcement on a mutual friend's Facebook page." Sarah's voice was steady, but her arm around me tightened. "He looked so happy in the photo. He was wearing a new expensive watch I'd never seen before, and this glamorous wealthy girl was on his arm. I knew then that he was never coming back." My heart stopped. A ridiculous, terrifying thought clawed its way into my mind. What was his name?" My voice was a dry rasp. Sarah looked up at me, her eyes full of apology. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't mean to bring all this up. It just made me think. His name was Sonny. Sonny Sterling. Mr. Sterling, the man in the Maserati with his arm around Tiffany, blowing cigar smoke in my face and telling me I wasn't good enough. My brain exploded. The thin familiar back at my wedding. The look of jealousy, regret, and utter despair. It was him. So, I had taken Tiffany from him. And then I had taken Sarah. No, that wasn't right. I didn't take anyone. Tiffany threw herself at him, and he, for the sake of his ambition, threw Sarah away. I thought my revenge was complete the day I became a success. The day Tiffany came crawling back. I was wrong. My real revenge began the moment I met Dr. Sarah Vance. I had claimed the treasure he once possessed but had cast aside as worthless. And I cherished her as I cherished my own life. I was living the happiness that should have been his while he, because of his own choices, had plummeted into an abyss. I'd heard whispers about him. His father-in-law had cut him loose after milking his company for all it was worth. His business went bankrupt, and he was drowning in lawsuits and debt. He had fallen from the heavens and landed in a deeper pit of mud than I had ever been in. That's why he was at my wedding. He wasn't there to see me. He was there to see Sarah. He was there to watch the woman he had abandoned, Mary, the poor coder he had once despised. A coder who had now reached heights so far beyond him. He wasn't even worthy of looking up. The irony was staggering. I looked at Sarah, who was watching me with concern, thinking my silence was anger about her past. "Are you mad?" she asked timidly. I shook my head and pulled her into my arms, holding her so tightly I wished I could fuse her to me. I wasn't mad. I was reeling from a sense of cosmic, earth-shattering fate. I thought my life was an inspirational story of revenge with me as the hero. I finally understood my life wasn't a drama. It was a pitch-black comedy of errors. We all think we're the main character, but we're just pieces on a board moved by forces we can't comprehend. I thought I'd conquer my past, but my past, in a way I could never have imagined, was inextricably woven into my present and my future. I kissed Sarah's forehead, breathing in the familiar, comforting scent of her hair. "Sarah," I whispered, "thank you. Thank you for being thrown away by him. Thank you for choosing me." And